Welcome to our Gemara Shir. Baruch Hashem, we're zoche to learn Hashem's Torah, and that's the best. Our Shir is a Shir that has no pace. That's it. We decided. No Daf Yomi, no Amud Yomi. It's called Havana Yomis. You just have to understand what you read and get it well. And we sometimes bring in Rishonim and halacha. We're going to have some Mishnah Berurah today. Even if you didn't bring it, it's very understandable. Our Gemara Shir is good for everybody. You're not bound by any pace. You'll just understand what you're learning. This year's Lishmas, my father Menachem ben Akiva, and for the quick release of all the hostages and all the soldiers, Bezos Hashem, come back home very quickly. We said in the Mishnah, today we're about to finish the Perek. We're about to finish the Perek today, hopefully, Bezos Hashem. Yeah, the Perek, the 22nd Perek of Shabbos. Hopefully, we'll get it over and done with today. The Mishnah said a person is not allowed to scratch himself on Shabbos with a special scratcher. Let's say there's a back scratcher. You're not allowed to use that on Shabbos. Let's see what the Brisa says. One is not allowed to take a megareres, which is, as we said, a special stick, yeah, or whatever that's meant for scratching, and scratch that special tool on Shabbos. Why not? I told him many times. Well, first of all, it's uvda dechol. Yeah, Rashi says before, and the Mishnah Berurah brings down. Mishnah Berurah says la halacha. It's uvda dechol. What's uvda dechol? Uvda dechol. This is a great example of uvda dechol. When you do something unprofessionally, a regular way, that's not professional. When you take a special kli, that's investing. Not professional, but you're investing too much in a mundane act. That's one definition of the chol. Why do you need a special scratcher? That's already too involved. You're too immersed in a chol dikepula. The levush, I didn't see levush inside. I saw the levush quoted in the Gemara, and the levush says that it looks as if you're healing yourself. Even though that's not called refuah, to just scratch yourself, but if you scratch with a special tool, that already seems like refuah, seems like a medical thing, and that's what it's also. That's uvda dechol. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel loimer, if his feet are dirty with mud or tsoya, real dirt with poo, then he's allowed to be goyrer, to scratch even with a scratcher. It's not choishesh. Why? It's not uvda dechol. When I want to scratch stam, I feel a bit of tingling, bit of, irritation. To start using a kli, that's too much. That's uvda dechol. But if I have something real gooky goo, real disgusting, I don't touch it with my hands. It's normal. I want to touch it just with what? I want to touch it with the scratcher. It's not called overdoing it. That's normal. And the Levush says that following his own reasoning, that if you have something that's dirty, it doesn't look like you're healing yourself. It looks like you're scratching yourself. That's okay. Now comes the Gemara with the Maskono, an additional fact. Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda avdele imei megarata de kaspa. Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, his mother made for him. Interesting. The mother made for the son, Talmid Chacham, and megarata de kaspa. She made for him a scratcher, a silver scratcher. Nice scratcher made of silver. Why? Because there was a special one, says Rashi, one word Rashi says, l'Shabbos. She did it for Shabbos. Why? Because if you have a special one for Shabbos, that outsmarts the uvda dechol. Uvda dechol is I'm involved in a choil dike act. But if I have a special, beautiful one for Shabbos, it's not chol, it's Shabbos. That's why then it's not uvda dechol. Hence, says the Mishnah Berurah in this very same place I saw the Mishnah Berurah, he says you're not allowed to comb your hair on Shabbos. But if you have a special comb, and you also comb your hair very, very softly with, very soft bristles, not bristle, very soft hair, the brush has, and you do it very softly, then it's okay. But you still have to have a special brush for Shabbos, because the brush of Chol is uvda dechol. The brush made special for Shabbos is not uvda dechol. It's a special, nice, fancy Shabbos one. And Yodin the Kurdima. The Mishnah said there is a specific kind of river or pond You're not allowed to go down there and visit that pond on Shabbos. My time, why not? Mishum pika. What does pika? What does pika mean? Says Rashi, it's a very muddy place. The seabed, the riverbed there is real mud and yucky and very slimy, very machlik. It's more slippery than a regular river. And therefore what? And therefore you may come very easily to get your clothes dirty and wet. You may want to walk there, but you easily going to slip there into the water. Bah! And your water and your clothes are going to get wet. May come to squeeze. We're always concerned not to get things wet. Yeah, unless you come to squeeze. That's one example. And that says in halacha. The Ramo says that stamazoi hiking on Shabbos, not a good idea. I once saw a very nice video. They meant well, a Kiruv organization. They made a video, and again, they meant well. They showed how Shabbos is so nice, and it showed people in nature walking. It's not a very Shabbos-like thing to do. First of all, you can very easily go out of the tchum. Yeah, you lose yourself 2,000 amas. Yeah, carrying, scratching. It's oil. What kind of clothes are you going to wear? Shabbos clothes. Yeah, better stay home and learn Torah, play some games with your kids. The hiking is not exactly the epitome of Shabbos activity. I'm not saying it's usher, but here we see another example. You can't come to places where you fall, you get dirty. What do you need that for? Then oisin a piktvizin the Shabbos. What's a piktvizin? One is not allowed, that's halacha, as the Mishnah says, can't cause yourself to vomit on Shabbos. That's not allowed. Why? Because we said earlier, yeah, it could be like you're building yourself from the inside. More Pasha Pshat, which is also what the halacha says, it's like a refuah. If you do it for medical reasons, then it's like a refuah, not supposed to do refuah. When you take medications that cause you to vomit, that's a problem because that's what it's not considered refuah. Rashi says, even if it's not refuah, it's similar to refuah. You're taking pills for something unnecessary. Don't do that. Aval beyad mutar, or to put the fingers in the throat in order to cause vomiting, if you have to, for whichever medical reason, that's not called refuah, because you're not taking medication, you're just doing something more, less significant with a hand, and that's allowed. That's allowed on Shabbos. Tanya, however, this applies to weekdays also. One is not allowed to cause himself to vomit even during the week, unless he has a good reason for it. Why? Because that's a loss of food. It's baltashkis. What are you doing here? Basically, like the Romans used to do. The Romans were very chazir dike, very gashmis dike people. They used to vomit in order to eat more. So then, why are you vomiting? You're wasting food. You're satisfied already. You stop vomiting in order to eat more. Then you're wasting food. Wasting food is also baltashkis. Therefore, don't cause yourself to vomit even during the week, unless you really have to, because it's a loss of food. Ben Matzvin is a cotton. Here had very, very big simcha, because this is the final Gemara that talks about shaping the baby on Shabbos. There are 3 different Gemaras. We know on Samech Vov. We saw one in Kuf Kaf Tes. We saw one in Kuf Kaf Gimel. And they all talk about setting the organs of a baby, setting up the body of a newborn baby on Shabbos. And today, Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to summarize the whole thing with the Mishnah Berurah. Then Ma'atz v'Nesakoton. So in our Mishnah we said, don't Ma'atz v'Nesakoton, don't build up the baby. You have a baby, and we're not talking on the first day, we're talking about afterwards. The first day you can do anything to the baby because, if you don't act now, it can be too late. You can do everything for the baby on the first day. Later on, it's a discussion. Now, what's en me'atzvin? Don't shape up and start building the baby. That's what we think now. Don't start settling in his organs, his limbs. It says in Daf Samech Vov, and here again, one is allowed lelapef. Lelapef in Hebrew means to wrap around. You're allowed to wrap the baby with the what then were diapers or nappies, diapers on Shabbos, not the diapers we have today. You know, the old style diapers. Allowed to like wrap him up like a mommy, like a babushka, all over like that, so his body gets nice and straight. So now, what does it say? You're allowed to do it. Frag the Gemara, "Va'anatnan en ma'atzmin." It says in the Mishnah, you're not allowed to build up and settle the baby, set up the baby. So what's going on? How can Rabbi Yochanan argue in the Mishnah? Answers the Gemara, "Hasa b'chumrei shido demechzik boina," which means here we're going to talk about three levels. Level number one, level number three, our case of our Mishnah, that's for sure osir, is to set the baby fumrei shidro, says Rashi. We're talking about a baby that mamish has, and he's not in the day, not when he was just born. Later on, he goes back to hospital to the nurses, to the doctors, with a problem that one of his vertebrae are not exactly in place. It's more like an operation. They have to resettle the baby's back in a very severe, serious medical way. And that, again, I don't know what today the halacha would be, that is something that the Mishnah said is not allowed. That is not allowed because that's chumra shidra. That's chumra shidra. And that's the case where the Mishnah said that what's chumra shidra? That's for sure not allowed. Everyone agrees. The case in Dam Samech Vav, which is again repeating over here, is the lepufi. Lepufi, which is that's wrapping him up as like a, so he just should be settled. You're not doing anything real. You're not really doing any operation or surgery or even any chiropractor kind of thing. Like, you know, they settle things in. Stop. You wrap him up. That's fine. L'kulam, that's okay, because that's the least intravenous that there is. There is another Gemara, which is the middle case, the middle of the road case, that's in Kufkav Gimel, that's called a Suvi Yanuka. That was a Machloikis. A Suvi Yanuka is not just wrapping with clothes, and not mamish operating and putting in a broken bone or I don't know, vertebra out of place. That talks about setting his limbs, putting his hands in the place, you know, like mechazik, strengthening with our own hands, strengthening his hands, his arms, strengthening his feet, his legs. That is something which is a machloikes, and laloch it's allowed. So let's summarize. Now we have it all. When you talk about just wrapping him up, like the midwives do, they wrap him up to be nice and straight, that's allowed. You're not doing anything significant. What's the second case? When you want to set in the organs, you are using yadayim to put in the bone, but it's not mamish the bone that went out of its place. You're just giving it extra chizuk, machloikes, amiroim, and it's allowed. The third case is for sure not allowed, and when you mamish has a vertebra that popped out of its place, and now you want to put it in, that's like a whole surgery. And that's not allowed on Shabbos unless it's a real sakona. Very good. Then machzirin es hasheva. The Mishnah said one is not allowed to put in the shever, which means somebody has a broken bone. So according to the Mishnah, one is not supposed to basically, put in to settle in, like today we would do with a cast, not supposed to put the broken bone and try and heal it. Try and, put it back in place. Yeah, that's not allowed. So says the Mishnah. This Mishnah has many details that are not lahalocha. This is one of them. Amar Rabbi Chana Bagdato. Rabbi Chana from Bagdato. You know it's Bagdato? Baghdad. We all know Baghdad is the big city, the capital of Iraq. Rabbi Chana was from Baghdad. Amar Rabbi Chana Bagdato Amar Shmuel. Halacha machzirin es hashever. Shmuel says, as opposed to the Mishnah, Kuf Mem Ches Amud Aleph. Halacha is one is allowed to put in and return the shever to its place. By the way, this is not a disjointed thing that got out of the place. It's a broken bone. Yeah, and you want to like tie it in order to basically heal the broken area. Like today we do with a cast. Says Shmuel, it is allowed. The Rishonim are wondering what's going on here. Is Shmuel arguing in the Mishnah? No. Shmuel doesn't argue in the Mishnah. Shmuel, again, like we had many times before, Shmuel believes that the Mishnah never said it. Shmuel says the real version in the Mishnah, the real gears in the Mishnah is one is allowed to. Shmuel says the Mishnah never said that. And Shmuel, by the way, is one of the earliest Tamaroim. He knows, yeah. Rabbi Bar Chana, story time, story based on what we just said. So let's just repeat. If you just read our Mishnah and you don't know anything besides the Mishnah, it says you're not allowed to do anything to return a broken bone and heal it and reconnect it, right? No. However, Shmuel said otherwise. Shmuel not disagrees with the Mishnah. Shmuel disagrees with this version of the Mishnah. Shmuel said it is okay to put back the shever. Now, Rabba Bar Chana, story to do with that. Rabba Bar Chana ikla lepumpadisa. Rabba Bar Chana came by chance, he chanced upon the city of Pumpadisa. Lo al lepirke de Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda was a Rebbe in yeshiva in Pumpadisa, who was giving shir, and Abba Bar Chana did not come to his shir. He was only visiting town, so he didn't feel like he has to go to shir. He's not one of the Talmidim. He's a visitor. He did not go to enjoy the shir of Rav Yehuda. He had his own learning. Shadri la'ad Rav Yehuda soon will know why. Rav Yehuda found it very, very important to bring in Rabba Bar Chana to the shir, right? And he invited Ada, the Dayal, to call him. What's Dayal in modern Hebrew? You know what's Dayal? A stewardess, an attendant. Dayal back then was like the Shamish, the servant of the Chachamim. Yeah, he was a servant, and he called the servant to call in, to summon Rav Yehuda to the shir. Omer lei zil garbe, go and you should force him to come by taking away from him his garment. Take a garment from him, a piece of cloth, some kind of garment. Take it from him in order to pressurize him to come to shir. Ozal garbe, and Ada, the faithful servant, went, and so he did. He took and he forced Rabba Bar Chana to come to shir by taking his garment, his clothing item, until he came to shir. Also, he came Ashkeche de Kadorish. Now, Rabba Bar Chana at the end of the day agreed. He gave in and he came to shir, and he found Rav Yehuda giving shir, saying, "En machzirin es hashever." Rav Yehuda the Amora was teaching a Mishnah. One is not allowed to heal and try and put back the broken bone. Omar Le, Rabba Bar Chana is now opening the eyes of everybody, arguing with the Magichir of Yehuda, and telling him, Hachi Omar Rav Chana Begdeto, Omar Shmuel. This is what Rav Chana Begdeto said on behalf of Shmuel. Halacha machzirin es hashever. Halacha is one is allowed to machzirin es hashever. Yeah, I'm sorry, the version you have is wrong. I have the right version from Shmuel, and I'm telling you, one is allowed to put back the broken bone. Omerle, he was very impressed. The Megiddo of Yehuda said, "Really? Wow." Omerle, Hachana Tidan of Chana Begdeto is one of us. He's one from the Bavel. He's not a Talmid Chacham from Eretz Yisrael. He grew up amongst us. Vashmuel Tidan. Shmuel is also an Amora from Bavel. Velosh Mieli, and I never heard that before. Meaning, I'm thankful to you, Rabbi Bar Chana, for enlightening me, for informing me of the emes that really it's allowed. Wasn't I right to really, wasn't it the correct thing to do on my side to force you to come? I'm glad I forced you to come because now you're informing me and everybody else in Shir about the emes. That one is allowed to take the shever and heal it. Why you're allowed to do it? The Ritva explains it's a sakana. It's a sakana saver. If you don't fix the shaver, the broken fracture right away, many times it can be right irrevocable. So you have to do it right now. Otherwise, it's sakana saver. Sakana saver. You do refuah. Mishan ifreko yodoi. What's mishan ifreko yodoi? Again, we said in the Mishnah, this is not a broken bone. This is a disjointed limb. Someone's arm got out of the place, and here we're not so lenient. Here we say that you're not allowed to litrof. You're not allowed to like massage it with cold water, which could be good for it, but rather you can just wash yourself, and if b'derech agav it helps. Maybe nifreka doesn't mean mamish disjointed, maybe halfway. I don't know. Something went a little bit out of place. So you're not allowed to treat it a special way. Just wash it and see. And wait for Motzei Shabbos. It's not so dangerous. Again, nothing here is halacha l'maisa, so you should know. Yeah, all these things of refuah, the different opinions, nishtanu atvoim. This is not halacha shir. This is a Mishnah Gemara shir. Rav Avia have a Yosef kamed Rav Yosef. Rav Avia was sitting in front of Rav Yosef, shanya leyodei, and his hand popped out of place. I don't know how bad it was, but something was mishtane, changed. Oh, some kind of change of, yeah, his hand, his arm, I'm not sure. A shtickle popped out of its place. Omar le hachimai. If this was Shabbos, right? If this was Shabbos, would this kind of motion be allowed? He tried to do all kinds of motions to maneuver it back to the place. Is that motion okay? Also, it's not allowed. V'achimai, he tried a different way. Omer also is not allowed. Adachi itpach yodei. Meanwhile, yeah, his hand, Baruch Hashem, got better. Itpach. Omer le, mighty bailach. But then Rav Yosef asked him, "What's your question, Rav Avia? Why are you trying to kivyochol find what's also what's mutter?" Atanan. It says black on white in the Mishnah. We said before, you're not allowed to do anything special in order to heal that disjointed limb. You can't even litrafem, you can't whisk it with cold water. You can't massage it strongly with cold water. You can just wash it and hope for the best and wait for Motzei Shabbos and go to Terem, go to the emergency room. Yeah. So why are you asking me all these questions? It says in the Mishnah, don't do anything. Omer lei, so Rav Avi responded, excuse me, Rav Yosef, v'lo itanan, ein machzirin es hashever. Look at the previous case of the Mishnah, the previous halacha. What did we learn? Although the Mishnah said not to return the broken bone, not to rejoin the broken bone, and yet the Mishnah there was not correct. As we just saw, halacha is one is allowed to return the shever. One is allowed to return the broken bone. So you see, our Mishnah may not be reliable. You're telling me to just follow the Mishnah blindly? Well, the previous case of the Mishnah, we saw when it comes to a broken, fractured bone, we see that the fracture, the Mishnah said, don't do anything about it. And the halacha is, yes, do something about it. So here too, maybe it's the same thing. I don't know if to rely on the Mishnah. Omar lei, Rav Yosef said, no, wrong. You are taking all the statements of the Mishnah and you are sewing them with the same, you're weaving them in one cloth. You are not in a justifiable way, in an unjust way, you are comparing all the cases of the Mishnah. You're sewing all the Mishnah as one blanket, as one cloth. Wherever it says, it says. Where it doesn't say, it doesn't say. Which means, yeah, if the Mishnah says that whenever we learn that the Mishnah is wrong, the Mishnah is wrong. When we learn the Mishnah is right, or never learned otherwise, we didn't learn it. Not everything written in the same Mishnah, just because one bava or two in the Mishnah happen to be not right la halacha, that doesn't, basically outdoes, it doesn't disqualify the entire Mishnah. Therefore, the Mishnah is correct when it comes to a disjointed joint or aver. That is still okay to do. I'll just quickly read the Mishnah Berurah, even just the Shulchan Aruch about the baby, to see how very nicely it's all summarized. Siman Shin Lamed. It says here, it says, Mutar miyashri mevor avlat shenisparko mechmas tar leida. Halacha test, says the Shulchan Aruch, one is allowed to straighten the evorim. Shenisparku. He has all these evorim, and from the trauma of the birth, as he goes through the tunnel, some of his joints may be shaky, flaky, and kind of flexible. You're allowed to straighten them with your hands. That was the machlokes in Daf Kuf Kav Gimel, and we're makel. 2. Mutar lekocha bivgodav shlo yisak me'evorov. You're allowed to wrap him up with those diapers to just make sure that he stays straight. You're not straightening. You're keeping him straight. Very good. That's okay. That was a Daf Samech Vav. That's the Kulam, okay. Exactly. We're preventing children later on. And what about the third case? That's in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says here, in Nispak Chula Sheshidramim Koima, also liyashev beyod Chula Sheshidra Achas Roberto, the Mexica boine. Unless it's the first day, to mamish take a bone that's out and you need to push in very strongly, that's already mamish similar to boina. That's not allowed. Very good. Again, this is just a general idea. Hadlan al chavis, mazel tov. Oh, starting a new parak. Wow, I didn't even expect that. Baruch Hashem. That new parak of ours discusses the topic of borrowing food on Shabbos. Are you allowed to borrow food? We all know that to buy and sell is not allowed on Shabbos. Why? One reason was not why is one not allowed to sell or buy on Shabbos? Yeah, it's not Chilul Shabbos. I'm selling you my tie, right? You give me, I don't know, 10 shekels I would get for it. Money is muktzeh. Okay, first of all, is money muktzeh? It's also the rabbanon. No money. Let's just have a handshake. You pick up the tie, okay, and yeah, it's yours without touching money or doing any malacha. So the one reason that's mentioned is, one second, we have a call here. What's this one message? Very good. And the winner is Zvi from America. Yeah, he's with us on Zoom. There's a concern he may come to write. May come to write. In other words, if you owe me an entire 10 shekels, that's so much money, or maybe 10,000 shekels, if it's a different deal, I'm going to write it down. Because there's a chashash, you may come to write. Therefore, transactions are also on Shabbos. There could be other reasons too. That's one reason. Here, what about borrowing on Shabbos? If you borrow something significant from your friend on Shabbos, yeah. Also, sometimes it's allowed, sometimes it's not allowed. Depends on the context, depends on the words you use. Says the Heilige Mishnah, beginning of Perek Shoyel. Shoyel Odom Mechaveroi, a person borrows from his friend, Kada Yain v'Kada Shemen, that's big stuff. Barrels of jugs of wine, jugs of oil on Shabbos. Middle of Shabbos, you have all the guests are coming. Whoa, you need jugs of oil. You're asking your friend, can I borrow your wine? What do you mean borrow? You won't give back the same wine. It's not really borrowing, right? You're really going to use the wine, consume it, and give him back other wine. That's even worse, right? It's more similar to Kinyan. And yet, you're allowed to do that on Shabbos. I'm not saying it's allowed for everything. So far, we're talking about food at the moment. You're allowed to borrow food from your friend on Shabbos, and we're not concerned you're going to come to write it down. Why? What's the trick? What's the catch? As long as you don't use the word halveini, which means in Hebrew, actually in modern Hebrew too, there are two words for borrowing, she'ela and halva. And these are very different in more than one way. One way, just in order to read the Mishnah fluently, I'll give you one example, and that is halva usually relates to money, not to goods. She'ela is usually something that go back the same way. I'm sho'el, Israelis mix it up all the time, and I gave up, giving people mussar and grammar. But basically, when you ask your friend for a drill, don't say la'alvot la'ash'il. Yeah? Sho'el means to borrow a drill, to borrow a hammer. Lehalvot is usually to lend money. Now, halva, secondly, halva is usually for longer time. Halva means money loan, which is usually for a long time, for half a year. Mortgages can be decades, right? Halva. And the minimum, unless said otherwise, even if I borrowed money from you and it didn't specify any time, automatically it's 30 days. 30 days could be a long time. While she'ela usually comes back much earlier. If I borrow your fan, I don't know, your computer, unless known otherwise, I'm supposed to give it to you ASAP, way before 30 days, within a day or two. Oh, so that's the point. I'm allowed to borrow from you, borrow, meaning to take from you wine in order to give you back wine on Shabbos for the need of Shabbos, not for later, providing that I don't mention the word halva. If I say halva, that denotes that this is serious business, and I may come to only give it back to you in 30 days, and that would tempt you, the lender, to write it down. You write down, I lend so-and-so, I don't know, 10 gallons of wine. If you only say she'ela, that makes it look and sound less serious. Of course, you have to give it back, mitzad chosh and mishpat, but there is less chances that the mash'il, the lender, will come to write it down. What I said now is not exactly what the Gemara is going to say. This is just a general picture. She'ela is short term, halva is long term. Long term is already, I'm in the mindset of long term business, and I may write it down to make sure we don't forget. That's the general idea. V'chein, similarly, ha'isha mechaverta kikoros. So too a woman may borrow from her friend kikoros. What's kikoros? Loaves of bread, and she's not concerned that she may come to write anything, providing she doesn't say to her friend Halvini. Oh yeah, don't tell her Halvini because Alvo sounds like big business, and she may come to write. Of course, people would ask, why do we have the second example? Who cares if it's a man with wine or women with bread? The Gemara is going to discuss it. The Gemara will say that here we have the chiddush regarding ribis. To be discussed later, we're going to touch upon ribis here, okay? Without, that's where ribis meets Shabbos. To be discussed later, a ribis issue. Let's say the person does not believe him. A new neighbor comes, or a neighbor that's not so reliable, knocking on your door. Can I borrow 5 bottles of wine? I can't write, and I don't know if I'll ever see them back. And this is nice wine. I want to be a nice guy, but I'm not the wine gemach over here. I'm not Rothschild, and I don't have Rothschild wine either. So what do you do? Maniach talisoy etzloy, Shabbos. He's allowed to tell his friend, can I have your nice jacket, your suit, your talis, something worth money? I would say more or less maybe the same value as 5 bottles of wine, yeah? And I'll keep it by me until you give me back the wine. Why is that allowed? Is it like a Kenyan? That could be an issue, but it's okay as long as you don't say the word mashkoin. As long as we don't say that this is like, quid pro quo, this is like one instead of the other, and I am taking this as a mashkoin, as a collateral. If you don't say that, you just say, listen, give me your jacket until we sort things out, that's okay. Because again, it's not mamish a transaction, it's like a hint. No, mamish using it as a mashkoin, and after Shabbos you make the cheshbon. You say, listen, you got 5 bottles of wine, give me back 5 bottles of wine. You don't have them anymore. I'm sure you don't, because you drank them. So pay me so and so. Pay me, I don't know, however much it costs. The 5 bottles together worth 3,000 shekels. Give it back to me. V'chen, another example for the same idea. Erev Pesach b'Yerushalayim shechal yos b'Shabbos. Imagine yourself, be'ezras Hashem b'meir b'yemeinu amen. When do you bring your korban Pesach? Erev Pesach. Where? B'Yerushalayim. What happens if it's on Shabbos? Erev Pesach shechal b'Shabbos, and you did not bring your shepselet from home? You're in Yerushalayim, and you go crazy. Oi, it's Erev Pesach. I don't have my korban yet. It's way more important than giving another clean to the floor in the dining room. Yeah, you need your korban Pesach. Yeah, and you don't have it. You're in Yerushalayim. You came from Bet Shemesh. Who has shepselach? Who has sheep to give you? The people of Yerushalayim. That was a business. So now you want to buy from Mr. Sheep dealer a sheep. You need it. Korban. And what do? You're allowed to maniach teliso etzlo. You can't pay him, right? You want to buy it from him. Maniach teliso etzlo. You're allowed to leave, or you should, because you would demand it. He would demand a collateral without saying the dirty word mashkoin, as this is a halachic mashkoin, mamish like a collateral. And you're allowed to take the talis, put it by him, and take the Pesach without mentioning kinyan, money, value, mashkoin. Everything is like a silent movie. You take the Pesach korban, which is obviously still alive, and instead you give him the talis not as a kinyan, as a security measure, like collateral. You now allowed to take the Pesach and be makdish it, by the way. The Bartanura, and I assume the Gemara will talk about it later, when you bought it from him, it was a secular sheep. When you consecrate it, when you makdish it on Shabbos, you're allowed to be makdish on Shabbos, korbanos that are time bound. That's just Pesach, because you have no choice. And that's allowed, and after Yom Tov, you go back to him because you need your jacket. Well, first of all, I'd like to think you're a straight guy. You're not going to steal the korban. You want to pay him, right? Secondly, even if you're a crooked guy, you want your jacket back, right? You want your fancy shoes back. Whatever you gave as a collateral, you want it back. And then it's going to come and tell you, you want your jacket back? Let's make a cheshbon, how much the sheep was, and that's okay. And that's what they do even nowadays. Some places in Chutzar, try to have restaurants open on Shabbos, kosher restaurant, and it's allowed. and they basically give them the food, and they pay them either before Shabbos or after Shabbos, like a set amount. Yeah, they have like a set amount. A meal costs, I don't know, 100 shekels. You pay before or you pay after, and you come on Shabbos. I'm not saying, but that's a similar deal. Amalei, okay, so far so good is the Mishnah. Amalei Rove bar Rav Chanan leAbaye. Rove bar Chanan asked Abaye, Ma'ishna Shileini or Ma'ishna Alveini? Oh, what's the difference between semantics? Who cares whether the person told his friend, I want your bottles of wine, please, if you don't mind, I need your wine bottles. Who cares if you tell him Hashileini, lend me, or Halveni? In English, it's the same word. Who cares whether he says Shileini or Halveni? Why is one better than the other? Why is Halveni the dirty word and Hashileini okay? Amarlei, Hashileni loy osila michtav, as we said, as Tzvi said, the issue is writing. When you say the word Hashileni, you may not come. We're not concerned that the person, by listening to the words Hashileni, the owner, that would not kind of provoke him to come and write down. Halveni osila michtav. But if he says Halveni, that would cause him to write down. We're concerned that saying Halveni, the word Halva, sounds more like michtav, right? Look at Rashi. Halveni, Rashi, the first Rashi of the Gemara will tell you what I told you before. Halveni mashmal izman merube. Halveni sounds like, and halachically is, Halveni means longer time. The kaimel of Maseches Makkos of Gimel Amud Beis, stam halva lamidoim. Halva, even the shortest halva, unless known or described otherwise, unless there's another condition, halva without any other conditions, is the minimum of 30 days. 30 days? Oh, I'm going to forget in 30 days. He may quickly write on his ledger, I lent him 5 liters of Chardonnay and 2 liters of Petit Syrah and 1 liter of grape juice. So you shouldn't forget. Okay? Now, okay, I would stop here. The Gemara has a question on that, and I would stop at this moment. The Gemara is going to ask a question. No. But that will be Be'ezras Hashem tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you for being us. Here we have Tzvi on the thing. Shema Yichtov. Right. Yeah, Tzvi is not in the U.S. anymore. He is in Shemesh in Mishkafim. Ramat Shemesh is part of America in certain ways. It's the 51st state. Thank you, everybody, in Torah Anytime. People from all over. Baruch Hashem. Thank you for everybody who came here to Mount Blazer and Ramat Shemesh. Atzlacha uvrocha.